Title, I'm Dead, Now What? Um, so when I first saw that title, I was thinking of all the people that I want to haunt. And because for me, that's what I'm Dead, Now What is all about. But Elizabeth thinks that we should probably instead prepare ourselves for our families to carry on after we're gone so that we have a sense of leaving them with the tools that they need so that they can handle those really difficult days after our passing with some amount of composure and with a sense of knowing because you've given them instruction, knowing that they are being able to honor your wishes. So thank you. Without further ado, Elizabeth.
Welcome, everybody. Today's topic really is a misnomer because the majority of this information, which is probably the smallest handout you've received so far, but it's a real doozy. There's a lot of information to go over. So it's what we need now with footnotes about when you're gone, what's going to happen to all this stuff, all this information. So again, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'd like to first introduce you to my FBI. I've mentioned it before. This is my fireproof box for irreplaceables. Now, so many things are replaceable, but they're a real pain to replace them. So that's kind of number one, our irreplaceables. This box, and I don't want to go too far from the microphone, but I purchased the box itself off of Amazon, and there are many sources on Amazon, as we all know. The inside, however, are individually labeled folders, and then inside each folder is a little instruction page on what we should have in here, and then the other side of the page says to the people that are going to be taking over when we're gone what they need to do and a checklist on whether or not they've completed that task. This company is called Knockbox, N-O-K-B-O-X. NOK stands for next of kin. Now, I'm not supporting this. I'm not pushing this. They're not paying me to give them anything. But it is helpful to get started. And going through, since I've kind of been doing this for quite a while, it's not exactly the way I would set it up, but if you're setting things up for the first time, it's certainly a great beginning. Now, I just ordered the inserts. They have all sorts of packages. You can order everything from them. You can order the fireproof box, the inserts, and on and on. So I would suggest you at least go to their website, knockbox.com, and check it out. It might be something you're interested in. So let's just jump right in. N-O-K, next of kin. And thank you, Reverend John. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. I will try and restate your question so people viewing at home or later can hear it, plus the answer. The first thing is, and again, this is provided by the Knockbox people. For item number one, your irreplaceable items, and I've listed them, some of them here, such as your Social Security card, your birth and death certificates, vehicle titles, your original of your will and your trust, any family heirlooms like rings or jewelry or medals. Oh, and speaking of medals, I'd like to point out the fact that if you can catch any misspellings in the documents, please let me know and you'll win another rubber ducky. I misspelled medals, so thank you for pointing that out to me. I'm rather embarrassed. Adoption records, cemetery deeds, marriage certificates, divorce information, passports, deeds, a jewelry inventory perhaps, veterans medals, your durable power of attorney, contracts, etc., etc. Now, they provide this small bag to put those in and put it in a safe place. You might put it in a safe deposit box, which we will get to later. That's got its own caveats, but that's what this is for. The next item is your passwords. And Nikki had brought this up a couple of weeks ago. Passwords are so very important. And this company also, you can get a little passport book, which is handy because it's obviously in alphabetical order. It's very small. You can create your own. I would suggest you do it in pencil. But well, and you know, passwords are so very important, but I'm sure we probably all agree, goodness gracious, keeping up with all these passwords, and they ask you to change them, and you change them, and then you forget, and it's overwhelming, it's mind-boggling. And then if you do record them somewhere, then they could be, your system could be hacked and they could all be stolen. I don't think there's any absolute best way to do it. I've listed in here using a password manager. I've never done that. I hear it's very helpful. You only remember one password, and then it takes you from there. I have, like I say, I've not done that. I've not investigated. So I've just listed a few possible companies, I guess, that do that for you. Another option is using a passkey, where your computer, your phone, your laptop recognizes your fingerprint or your face. Well, that's great. But what if something happens to your finger or your face? You need to find out now how they handle that. You might want to change to a password or just figure it out so when you're unable to do that, someone can get to your valuable information. You also might want to include any combinations, although I'm going to talk about that with the keys. If you've got any locks or information, you might want to include that information in this book as well. The next one is keys. And again, Knockbox, in this package that I received, has a great little bag which has tags for all of your keys. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to keep an extra copy of my car fob. Those are way too expensive, and most everybody knows where those are. Your loved ones can find them. But the rest of your keys, such as your mailbox key, your safe deposit key, do you have a boat? Do you have a car? A golf cart, for example. Storage units, jewelry boxes, your home, post office box, file cabinet, any other real estate homes, things like that. You might want to keep them in a nice place. So again, in the event where you can't get your hands on them, someone can, and they're labeled so they know what they're for. And just to play with some folks, you might want to just throw in a few extra keys. Unlabeled. Just saying. You got to keep your sense of humor about this subject. Okay, let's move on to banking. You know, I spent a lot of time working on this document. I thought it was going to be a breeze because I thought I had most of the information we needed. Once I started just double checking and going over things, goodness gracious, there was just more and more and more to think about. And as I said in the first session, this came about because I ordered various documents, various books, and I mentioned the AARP book, and it's in the back if anybody just wants to take a look at it. It is a great book, resource for this information. And there's actually more information in that book than is going to be delivered here. Excuse me. But, for example, okay, your bank, how challenging is that? You know, I've got a bank. You might have a couple of bank accounts. But what about, do you ever transfer money with Venmo or Zelle? Do you have a PayPal account? Is there a balance on any of these? So, again, when you're not here, somebody needs to know what they are, where they are, and how to get to them. And in all of these, eventually you might see, I kind of cut it short about, obviously you need to know the name of the account, the telephone number, if there's a representative you're working with, the address, the telephone number, your account number, your PINs, your passwords. I mean, you might want to keep some of that information that might not change as often with this information versus in your password book. List all types of accounts. Okay, I've just got a checking or a savings account. Well, what if you've got a money market account, a CD, saving bonds? And if you're still writing checks, where are those checks and how does someone get to them? Are they in a locked cabinet? Well, where's that key? Oh, it's in this bag. List all of your incoming revenue streams. Well, I'm not employed anymore. It's just Social Security. Oops, maybe not. I've got a rental home, maybe a couple. I need to identify what that money is, where it's coming from, where it's going to, and how does somebody else check up on that. Child support. Do you have an inheritance that comes in every month? You need to record that information so that whoever's taking care of your estate, if they don't know about that, they need to know who they need to contact, because if the money stops coming in, they might need to check on that. You need to check every account also to make sure that it's the type of account that you want. For example, your banking account, your checking account, it's just an individual account. Well, that's great. So at your passing, that's going to follow your will, or if you don't have a will, it will go to probate, and whenever that's decided, however long that takes, then that money will go wherever the state determines it should go. Okay? And as we learned in the first session, that can take a lot of time. Yes, a question from Cheryl.
I was given to understand that bank accounts do not have to be on the will, that as long as you have designated a beneficiary.
Well, hold on, we're getting to that. Okay. If you've got a cosigner, right now that cosigner can draw checks on your account, but at your passing, that's over. It still, again, follows the will or your trust or the state. Now, if your checking account or your banking account, you've either got a beneficiary listed or a POD, pay upon death, which I've got a POD on my checking account, and it's upon my death, it goes to the trust. And the trust, and then immediately the trust releases that money to whoever I have identified to take over. It's kind of like a beneficiary. So it's the same thing in essence. But you need to do something unless you, again, are happy for your loved ones to wait and go through the process of putting it through probate.
What if you just have a joint account?
Well, what if both of you go? No, if you've got a joint account, but upon your death, that's over. Then the account follows your will or your trust. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, if there is a surviving, exactly. If there is a surviving co-owner of the account, it would go to that. But for example, God forbid, if something were to happen to both of you at the same time, maybe a car accident, whatever, it might not matter. Right. The comment was that if it is a joint account and the co-owner is a child and there's more than one child, then at your passing, that one child has complete authority over that account and doesn't have to share it with anyone. Good point.
So pick your favorite kid.
Yeah. All right. Insurance. I know who my favorite priest is. Moving on to insurance. Review all of your insurance policies regularly. That's a joke. And list all of the access information, your PIN numbers, your passwords, that sort of thing, and have copies of your policies, or at least if they're online, know where they are. However, I would suggest you have a hard copy of your homeowner's policy if you live here in Florida with the hurricanes we have. Another benefit of my FBI is that in the event of a hurricane, or if I have to evacuate or leave quickly, I can just pick up this and it goes with me very quickly, and I don't have to remember where I put this, that, or the other. Make sure you have reviewed your beneficiaries if that's the case. Time changes a lot. The person you thought would take care of things a few years ago, perhaps something's happened, you've had a falling out, they have passed away, but you haven't changed your documents. And beneficiaries are really pretty easy to change, so I would suggest you check that annually. In fact, that's a point. Almost everything just needs to be reviewed every year in case you do need to update something. And if you have any outstanding claims, you filed a claim with an insurance company, those following behind you need to know about that claim and what's happened. Maybe money is coming to the family. Okay, your home. Moving on to number 6, your home. Oh, long-term insurance? Long-term health insurance. Yeah, I've listed quite a few types of insurance. Who knew there were so many types of insurance?
Long-term is usually long-term disability.
Yeah, long-term disability. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and long-term. Yeah, right. Right. That's what I say. This information is not just for when we pass away. It's for today. And I've just listed those that I could think of, but we've already talked about a couple of more long-term disability care. Okay, moving on. Any other comments or suggestions? Carol?
Here are, some people set up automatic deductions from their bank account, which I have, and if I'm dead, I don't need those things coming out.
Right.
It just occurred to me to write down those things.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important. And we'll get to that in the bills section. We'll talk about that at length. Okay, your home, if you outright own it, what kind of ownership is it? Is it a sole ownership, life estate ownership, joint with the right of survivorship? Is it in a trust? Is it a community property? People need to know that. If you've got a mortgage, who's that mortgage with? What are the payments? What's the account number, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, this doesn't need to be really a formal document. Just take out a pad of paper and just write it down and stick it somewhere where you can find it again. Right, second mortgage. Whatever is any liens against, well, and we're getting to that. Yeah, and if you've got any liens against your home, if you've taken out a second mortgage. If you're renting or leasing, the same way. Where is the lease agreement, the rental agreement? What's your family going to have to take care of once you're gone? Reverse mortgage. Is there a reverse mortgage? Maybe the children thinking I've got a house that I can sell, or maybe not. If your home is paid off, what county is your deed registered so they can find it? This is when you might want to check into that ladybird deed that we talked about when Vicki Bowers was here. A ladybird deed, there's a longer name for it, this is the shortcut, is that one piece of paper that says when I pass away, I'm leaving my house to Bubba, and I'm going to sign it. It's registered, and it doesn't go through probate. I mean, end of story. So you might want to check that out. Again, the ladybird deed. List annual real estate taxes. Again, the kids might just think, oh, I got a house. Well, there's a few strings attached. You got to pay some taxes on that baby. And state any information needed to maintain your home. Again, I have referenced my grandson. He would, once again, nothing against my grandson, but he would have no clue on how to maintain my home. There's a whole laundry list, and surprise, surprise, I've got a whole binder that talks about everything that needs to be taken care of on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, and an annual basis. So that will be a document that, if I can get it in here, I will, since I'm really not doing any of that, but at least I've got it written down for him. Do you have a monthly lawn service? Do you have a cleaning service? Do you have association fees if you're in a condo? Annual maintenance services, pest control service, your utility providers. Do you have a pet walker that comes around every week to walk your pet? Handyman service, that you've found somebody that's reliable and shows up when they say they will. Write that name down. Do you have a security system that you use? Write down how to use it and when you like to use it. Let's see. And again, all the passcodes, more passcodes, more passwords. You can list your utility information here if you'd like, versus, again, in this book, so that folks don't have to go back and forth. What's my utility bill account number? How do I access if you've got online, if you're paying your bills online, that sort of thing. And then list any helpful information that might be useful to your loved ones about when you bought the home, when you put a new roof on it. You've got some helpful neighbors, or maybe they're not so helpful. Note that down. We've all lived in those neighborhoods. Okay, the storage unit that no one knows about, that you've had for centuries. Where is it located? Where is the key? What's the unit number? How is it paid for? Is it an automatic payment? Et cetera, et cetera. You need to have all of that information somewhere so somebody can find it. Investment, retirement, and veterans benefits. There's so much to this little section, so I'm just going to touch lightly on it. But if you've got major investments, retirement accounts, or if you're a veterans benefit, you have veterans benefit, I would really emphasize that you do some due diligence and find out first of all, what benefits you can get, and then what someone needs to know when you pass on. Don't forget any college savings accounts you might have for your children, grandchildren. Again, account information, account numbers, contact information, that sort of thing, just jot it all down. Your pension, are you getting a pension? And if so, what's the plan administrator, those sort of things. And I've got a note here. It's the next one, I'm sorry. Your retirement plans, do you have any 401ks, any Keogh plans, any Roth IRAs? This is where you need to put it all together. And here again, be sure and check those beneficiaries every year, or every time you think I need to change that, go ahead and make a change. It's very simple. That's one of the simple things you can do. Social Security. Are you getting Social Security? If you are, write down how much you're getting, in what year you're getting that, so your loved ones know. Of course, the moment you do pass away, they will be notified that you're no longer getting that check. And it stops pretty quickly. And probably if you get an extra check, you're going to get a note that you got to pay that back. Now, I was not aware of this, but state whether, if you've ever worked for a railroad, your Social Security amount can be affected by that. So just know that if you're not already taking Medicare. Well, but your children might not know that, and they might, again, be anticipating a bigger check. And Social Security will pay it. Yes. Yes, so Social Security, when you pass away, will pay your family a whopping $250. Yeah. Veterans benefits. It depends on how long the veteran was in service, the era during which the service was performed, whether the veteran is disabled, whether the disability was caused by active service, and many other criteria. The benefits are plenty, I mean plenty, and I urge you to visit va.gov to find out what they are. We have a caregiver support group here, and last month we had a new visitor, and she is in the middle of all of this right now. And she was just going on and on and on about the benefits she was getting for her husband, who is suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease. I mean, the home remodeling, it just blew my mind because I'm not familiar with VA benefits, so I really would urge everyone to check into that if that's applicable. And of course, you're going to have your loved one's military information, and here again is the website if you need to get access to the discharge information. Okay, your monthly bills. Monthly, quarterly, annually. I've listed just a few. Gosh, how many are there? You need to, of course, write down all the account numbers, telephone numbers, passcodes, etc., to gain access to all of this. Be sure to include how your bills are paid. Are they auto-paid? And, you know, oh, got to cut those off. Well, no, I'm paying my electric bill automatically, so let's don't be cutting that one off. Now, maybe an automatic payment to a charity you might want to reevaluate. Now, if you've left that in your will that you want that payment to continue, they'll need to abide by that and know that. But newspapers, if anybody still subscribes to a newspaper, either physically or online, your club memberships, of course your credit cards, charity givings, credit cards, magazines, any regular deliveries you've got. Security monitoring, once that house is sold or condo. Credit monitoring, and any other. I'm not going to go through every one, but there's a lot to think about. Yes, Glenn.
So let's say, both my parents are gone, and they have all this auto pay, but the bank account is in probate. Do all those auto pays continue to pay?
I do not know that. I would assume as much, but they. But unless they do, okay, unless there's a freeze put on it. But I think that, well, again, that, yeah. Well, and there again, the question was, once your loved one passes away, will those auto payments keep occurring? And I'm sure they will. That's why the need to cut them off. But again, that's the reason you need to put either a POD, or a beneficiary on your banking account. Right, right. Yes, Nancy. Okay, and the comment was made that yes, it does happen from experience that they will continue to be paid until they are stopped. Yes?
Yeah, and automatic payments can either come from your bank and go to the vendor, or the vendor can be billing against your bank account. So as you're recording these, you need to record where it's coming from. Is it a pay by the bank, or is it a draw from the creditor?
Correct. Yeah.
They're harder to-
Yeah. And that comment, in case you didn't hear it, there's two different kinds. Either you've got it set up where you're making a payment, or they're drawing automatically out of your banking account. So you may need to make it clear in your documentation what kind of account it is. Be sure that some of these, well, all of these entities are notified, especially things like maybe you've got a club membership. Maybe you've got a membership to Cooper's Hawk every month. You've got an alumni association. Provide information to these groups because they might want to include your obituary in their monthly newsletter, perhaps. Yeah, Cooper's Hawk's going to miss me as well. Or my friend, just saying for a friend. And, you know, when you start stopping all of these payments, make sure that somebody hasn't set up maybe a support payment to someone who is very needy. Every month I send $100 to Mr. Smith, who really needs it. And suddenly you cut that off because you don't know who Mr. Smith is, and suddenly he's really in a jam and doesn't know you've passed until the money stops. Okay. Any more comments or questions? Let's move on to number 10, vehicles or recreational vehicles. List everything you've got, how many cars you've got, boats, ATVs, campers, what their makes and models are, location of the title if you have one, or again if you've got a loan on it, what that loan information is. You don't want them to come find you when you're on your ATV and they're taking your ATV away from you. You want your registration and tag numbers and VIN numbers, if possible, have everything in one place. Location of these vehicles, and once again, the key to these vehicles. If you have a loan. And it would be helpful if you've got a great service company that takes care of these vehicles. Where do you take it when they break? Write that down for your loved one. That would be very helpful. Number 11, credit cards and miscellaneous accounts. List all of your credit cards, the account numbers, the issuing companies at Citibank, Bank of America, Master, those sort of things. Just list everything you've got, how it's paid. Is it auto pay? Do you write a check? Does your grandma write a check every month to that account? A copy of your, and it's easier, you might just take a recent statement and drop it in here. It'll have all the account information, but make sure it does have the account information, because these days, if you get a paper bill, or even online, it only gives you the last 4 digits of that account number. So you want to make sure you've got that account number. Make a copy of the cards that you own right now, front and back, and put that in here. Because I love it on the back of the card, if you lose this card, call this number. Well, I've lost the card. I don't know what number to call. So you need to have that. And don't forget, do you have a big box? Do you have a Costco, a Sam's, a BJ's card that again might be an auto payment every year? Are you a member of a gym? Anything that's auto renewed, make sure you write that down so that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Of course, once you close your credit cards or the bank account, they're going to know real quick that something's changed. But if it's in probate or it takes a while to close your estate, that could cost you a lot of money. And state where those cards are. Maybe if you got extra cards, you want to put them in here. It's not really wise to carry if you've got more than 1 or 2 credit cards, don't carry them all in your wallet, because if you should lose your wallet, there go all of your cards. Of course, then you'll have the telephone numbers that you can call and say, I need replacement cards. But you'll kind of be up a creek with no card to use. And in this day and time, I just heard Target now is no longer accepting checks. So, more and more our world is becoming cashless. So just to know. Yes, Chris?
Most people probably know this, but Apple phones have a wallet on them, and I don't have to carry any cards, and as long as I can use my Apple Pay.
Right. The point that was just made by Mr. Smart, Chris Martin, and Chris Martin, and many others, I'm sure. If you've got Apple Pay or any kind of mobile paying device, that's great. You don't have to keep any cash with you. You don't write checks anymore. It's wonderful. But again, make sure your loved ones know about that account and how it works. Let's see. Oh, and another thing I had forgotten about, some of these credit cards have reward points, and often they're not transferable. So you either might want to just go ahead and use up those points, or investigate and find out what does happen. If I don't even know. Just find out what happens so you don't lose the value of those points. Number 12, do you have a safe deposit box? Again, we were talking about these irreplaceables. You might want to have a safe deposit box. And again, write down all the numbers, account numbers or information. Where is it located? What's the box number? Where is the key to it? And if you've ever had one, it's, they're very secure for a reason. So you need to make sure you've possibly got a cosigner on it. You might want to make sure it's a joint account, because if not, and I don't know whether you can put a safe deposit box in your trust. I would assume as much, but again, as with everything with this series, please confirm with someone, an attorney, to confirm any information. But I would think that would be something you would want to put in your will or your trust, so that someone doesn't have to wait for your estate to be cleared to have the right to go get into your safe deposit box. Something else too, if you have a checking account or a banking account of any sort and you get a safe deposit box free, that's great, but you never use it. Don't accept that gift. Or please let your children know there's nothing in it, because they could take a lot of time and money and go through probate to get the rights to that box, only to find out it's empty. So there's that. And then you want to make sure you list everything that is in your safe deposit box. Number 13, real estate. Place all your deeds in a safe place. If you actually get a physical deed, that might go in the safe deposit box, because again, this box, they say, is fireproof. I doubt anything's truly fireproof, maybe fire resistant, but I would put important things. But they're still registered, I guess, with the county, so you can get them. But again, it could be a pain to get them. List all properties, whether you outright own them or not. Don't forget timeshares, rentals, farms, investment property, primary residence, secondary residence, condo, and don't forget those lovely condo associations. Review how your property is titled to ensure it matches your wishes if you should become incapacitated. There again, this is something you would probably want to review. There's a lot to real estate, and I'm going to leave it at that. Number 14, tax returns. Does it occur to you? Maybe it did. It didn't occur to me initially because my spouse passed away, but if now I'm just single, when I die, somebody's going to have to file my tax return. Yeah, duh. Well, who's going to do that? Well, you need to state where your tax returns are, maybe put one in here or your safe spot. Who does your taxes? Or if you do your own taxes, who's going to do that next return? Do you have loved ones that are capable of doing that? Or if you have a preferred CPA or somebody or some firm that does that, please write that down so they'll know where to go and don't really need to start from scratch. And I can't imagine doing someone else's taxes without having this kind of information all in one place. Taxes are fun enough, besides doing one for somebody else.
I have a question about taxes, so if you might know this. So the trust, when you file a tax return, are you also filing a tax return for the trust?
No, and that's in here.
Okay.
That's in here as well. I didn't realize that either. Let's see. Be sure and list if you are the one that's doing tax returns for somebody else, a loved one, a good friend. They're not capable of doing it any longer, so you're doing it for them. Well, now you can't do that. So you need to make a list of who they might be, what their information is, so they can be informed of your passing. After someone with a filing requirement passes away, their surviving spouse or representative should file the deceased person's final tax return. On the final tax return, the surviving spouse or representative should note the person has died. Now, the IRS doesn't need to have a death certificate. They already know, but they say you need to make clear that you have passed away. Usually the representative filing the final tax return is named in your will or appointed by the court. Sometimes when there isn't a surviving spouse or appointed representative, a personal representative will file the final tax, and they have to attach this Form 1310, Statement of Person Claiming Refund Due a Deceased Taxpayer. So you can't just file the return and wait for the money. And a tax return may be required for your estate or your trust until it's settled. So that answers your question. And again, include a copy of your latest return. Yes, question?
And so make sure, when you move, make sure that somebody knows where the closing statement is located from the sale of your previous house, because all of that information is needed if they go to sell your house.
A good point. The point that was made is make sure regardless, your closing, if you sell your house and move, make sure all of your closing information is in one place or all together so that whoever does the taxes knows that and can put it in your tax return. Thank you, Nancy. Any other comments? This is a lot of information, but as you can see, every session we've had, people are volunteering additional information that you need to know. And at the end of the day, there's no way we can know everything. But we can know a lot, and we can start working on this. This is what the little ducks are for, is to put them around your house. So every time you see that little yellow duck, it's like, I'll work on number 14 today. Okay, number 15, debt. List everyone or every entity to which you owe money. Another surprise, if the children think, okay, we're in the money now, only to find out you've got huge debt that could come back to consume your estate. What is it? You owe money to the IRS? I hope not. You've got medical bills, personal bills, creditors, student loan, there's that student loan again, or the State Department of Taxation. Document all your contact information, contact logs, I would suggest. Keeping a contact log if you're in any of these situations, and you've spoken with Ms. Smith on July 1st, and she said this. It doesn't have to be a diary, but just some quick notes. So somebody having to pick up after you, leave them a trail of what you've discussed and what the next action needs to be. Yes, Chris.
Medical debt. I've had a lot of experience with Mayo this year. Medicare, sends me these notices that they paid this much. I haven't heard from my co-insurance, and Mayo has not yet billed me for anything from the beginning of the year, even though Medicare says you may owe this, you may owe that. And if I died tomorrow, I don't know if there's medical debt there or not.
Okay, the comment is someone's had a lot of medical issues at Mayo this year, and you receive information saying a portion of it has been paid, but you have not received an actual bill from Mayo the entire year. I would suggest you contact Mayo. I mean,
He doesn't want to remind them.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's a good question. With my parents, we kind of ran into the same thing, and it was taken care of, but I would not assume anything at this point. And yes, you might not want to remind them that you owe them, but again, yeah, I would check with all of your insurance providers and see, because you don't want a walloping bill coming in December, for example. And you can't buy those Christmas gifts for Sandy. Yes, Nikki.
Do you have a portal now?
Yeah.
I always get a notice from them.
What was that, Nikki? I can't.
Do you have Mayo has a portal,
Oh, if you have medical portals.
and you can go right into
I do, and I go, what I owe. And it's, well, you made your last payment in September of 2023, and you paid this. And they have nothing else, just.
well, then you are likely not
Okay, the comment is if you've got a medical portal, you might check there, and if the balance is still zero, then Nikki and folks have brought up a good point. If you've got secondary insurance, sometimes that takes a while to work through the process. You can get a bill today, but 3 months down the road, that's been taken care of, so you don't owe anything. But good point. If you've got a medical portal, I would check there. Cheryl.
I was just wondering if you die at an inconvenient time, say, your credit card bill is due on a certain date, and you die right before you would have paid it. If your survivor supplies your death certificate, they can't run up a bunch of charges, can they?
I wouldn't think so, but again, I don't know. I do not know that. So I would check with your card provider and find out from them what's required at the time of your passing. And if there's a balance, does that come from your estate, or can your children just cut up that card and before they've gone out to dinner?
Well, I was just thinking they might tangle late fees and all that.
Right, I know. Yeah, and that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And the question was, if you pass away before you've paid your last payment, will the credit card come after your estate? And okay. I'm just making an assumption here. They probably would have to file a claim against your estate, and unless it was a huge balance, I would think they would just write it off. But then I'm not sure. So. Yeah, it could be just a few late fees and it's taken care of. Any other comments? Some of the credit cards might include life insurance. Good point. And true. And that was another point back in our banking session. It's not just a bank anymore. My insurance company provides banking services. So it's not just Bank of America or Wells Fargo or just online banks anymore. Okay, social media, our favorite. List all of your accounts with their usernames and passwords. Investigate how your accounts may be accessed after your passing or incapacitation. And explain how you want these accounts to be handled after your passing. Yeah, in this day and time, and more so every day, it seems like the world revolves around these types of accounts. It used to be where you put the obituary in the paper. That was well and good. That does cost a fortune these days, but in lieu of that, they're putting it on Facebook. And do you want that to happen? Yes or no? And how to close these out after you pass. I know I still cannot gain access to my husband's account, and it's still on Facebook. So
So there is a setting on Facebook that ties to everything Facebook owns. It's called a legacy setting. And you go into your settings and you identify a person that you want to have permission, this person have permission to go into your Facebook for legacy purposes, so to be able to get all of those photos and that history that you have that could be so helpful, and then to also communicate with the people that will continue to leave messages.
they do.
And it's called a legacy setting. So if you haven't done that, I would suggest doing that. Apple has also done the same thing with their phones, because as soon as the Apple Corporation finds out that your significant person passed away, they lock the phone up. So I don't care whether you cut their thumb off because they used their fingerprint, or you dissected their face and you're using their face print. That phone will be cut off. But there's a legacy program in Apple now, and I've done that. Scott and I have both done that with our children. So each one of our children has the ability, if something tragic should happen to us, they have full access to everything that's on this phone.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. And if you didn't hear that, Apple and Facebook have a legacy setting where you can appoint somebody, and that would be very smart. I need to add that to this information. So that, and Glenda also mentioned that often when they find out that you have passed away, they lock up the phone so you can't get access to it. 17, the last one, credit bureau notification. After a person dies, their credit file will need to be closed since it does not happen automatically. Report the death to the 3 firms, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Reporting death to the credit bureaus can help prevent the possibility of identity theft. The credit bureau might add a deceased indicator to your relative's credit file. This prevents anyone from stealing their identity. It's also important to report the death if the person you are reporting is someone with whom you shared the account. After reporting the death to the credit bureau, you may want to request a fresh credit report in case some scammer has already gotten to it. So I didn't know that. I didn't do this with my husband, but it's been a while, so it's okay. So that concludes today. Oh, Cheryl, we have a question?
Sorry. I just looked up because I have an Android.
Uh-huh.
I just looked up to see if they have a legacy setting. I never knew anything about that. They do. So the Android phones also.
Oh, good point. Androids also have a legacy setting. Yeah, Nancy?
I just have a few things to add, because I've been through this 3 times with family members. But one of the things I've done for my daughter, who doesn't live here, is I have sent her something, basically a Word document. It has the main things, not everything, but the main things like bank account, pension, those things. So in a pinch, she's got a few things, the bigger things, the more important things she can tackle right then and there. And I have the contact people. I have tried to establish a relationship with people, like my bank, I'm getting there for them, she's working for the bank. And so I have somebody that I deal with as an officer. Now, she might change, but I figure I have 2 years left, but not like I
So let me just, the first comment is she has sent to her daughter just kind of a cheat sheet. It's a Word document that in lieu of some problem that you can't take care of, she's got the pertinent, the emergency. And we went over that, something similar last week. The document's called When You Find Me Dead, ... And it's kind of that kind of document on day one, who to contact and what to do, and here's the immediate information to put together. So, and that is an excellent point, because you don't want your daughter to have to sit down right now and read all of your will or your trust, what everything, she needs to know that quickly, like a cliff note.
The other thing I've done is I've told these people her name and her information. And like I said, I've established some relationships with people, so they know.
The next part is creating relationships. However, if something does pass away, if she doesn't have your power of attorney, it's not going to mean anything if it's a legal issue she's dealing with. But creating relationships with people you deal with is important, or can be important. Again, though, if it's a legal matter, that's probably not going to hold water. If she were to call, there you go. Yeah, if you've got a POD on your checking account.
The person that does the retirement has been there for a long time. He got replaced with someone, that I've known now for maybe 5 years. And she knows my daughter's information. So at least there's that connection. So if I have somebody calling, I would.
Yeah, the point is, if you can create relationships, it may help and ease the process going forward. Like with investment bankers or bankers or.
People that do retirements, like as I've worked with U.S. Health, and there's somebody there. So, and also with the attorneys, I've had my properties complicated. So, my real estate attorney, he has her information. Anything that I have, just like the attorney who's done my paperwork, like, your, all the documents, power of attorney, all the documents
And that's in your documentation with your attorney. The point is, if you create these relationships, you still need to have it written down someplace, but whoever the entity is has been introduced, knows your child or your loved one or your representative. It does help. Yes?
I think I heard Vicki Bowers talk something about this, but just to follow up a little bit about the bank account. As an alternative to pay on death instruction, is it possible that an account can be set up as an asset transfer upon death into a revocable trust?
Well, yeah. See, I've got a POD. Pay upon death goes to my trust.
Whoever the trustee is walks right in.
Right, exactly. The point is you've got to give the bank authority to give another person or an entity, like it goes to the Elizabeth Diamond Revocable Trust.
You could set up a trust, identify the trustee, have it pay on death to
Right.
the trustee, that's a revocable trust. Then if you change the trustee at some point, you don't need to change the trustee, that's what you don't need to put an alternative. You don't put the
Yeah, yeah, you can change your trust anytime you want to. And in fact, I've just done that myself, and I didn't have to go back to the bank because the bank has pay upon death to my trust. So everything I want, and that's immediately. You know, I think on day one, things to do, call the attorney. And my attorney, Vicki Bowers, will put into action all of those things. So my representative will have access to all of my accounts, my checking account, money to pay for my funeral, et cetera, whatever expenses might come up that they have to deal with my home, my vehicle, et cetera. It makes it pretty easy. And again, it doesn't go through probate. Any other questions? Okay, we've done it in 2 minutes to go, less than an hour. So thank you. Thank you all for coming. Now, next week, we have a guest speaker, Dr. Tom Hilton, a good friend of Reverend John. He is a retired surgeon, and it's on the little syllabus back there. Cardiologist, I'm sorry. And he's going to give us